Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. And I've got lots of great stuff to go over today. You know, I always start with the stats, and we're going to be looking at what's going on right now. And then we're also going to be looking at what happened in the month. And I also ran into this great study that was done of like, who's moving to Florida? And is that hurting the people that live here now and everything? So we're going to be going into that today too. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great show, and I hope you enjoy the information. I enjoy learning about it and seeing it. And then I see it in action when I'm out there with buyers and sellers on a very consistent basis to see, you know, kind of what's going on and everything, you know, with that. One house that I saw this week, there are a few more bank-owned homes on the market than there have been in the past years. We've gone really probably since about 2012, maybe. 2010 was kind of the height of the bank-owned homes. And then they disappeared as the market started to increase, and they have kind of been negligent. Like it's been very rare. Like the people that I know that that ended up getting that foreclosed on, it was as a result of like a divorce or something like that. The only one I know of was a guy that he and his wife, they divorced many years ago, and the house was still tied up in that both of them had to agree. Now, he was supposed to get the proceeds from the house when it sold, but she had to sign off on it when it sold and everything, and she refused to sign off. And so as a result of that, he couldn't sell it, and he was making 50% of the money that he used to, and so he couldn't afford the house anymore. So we could have sold it. He could have put money in his pocket, but because she wouldn't sign it, and he couldn't get an attorney that could get anything to happen fast enough, that it actually got foreclosed. And that's the only one that I know of. So it's kind of rare that homes were foreclosed on. And basically, when it came down to it, you know, if you owned your house, I would say before 2020, 2021, somewhere in that range, you probably have quite a bit of equity. So it might be, if you're really behind in your payments, the bottom line is that you might be able to walk away with money. You might still have to sell your house because you can't make up those past payments, but you can walk away with some money and move into a new situation. I had somebody that I was working with a couple of months ago, and they were in foreclosure and all of that, and I was able to sell their house. They were able to, you know, walk away clean, not have the foreclosure on their record, and they were really excited about that. And so I think that the biggest mistake that people probably make is that they wait too long, and they think that they're going to, you know, that there's no hope. And there always is, you know, a way to look at it, you know, and somebody looking at it through fresh eyes makes a big difference. There's another lady that I know that should be closing really any day. And basically that was another situation where she was kind of behind the eight ball. The house is going to courthouse sale and everything like that. And we were able to get her an offer where she ends up whole. The bank's going to end up whole. And so we definitely like to see those types of situations. Now, unfortunately, you know, if you did buy your house probably in the last 4 or 5 years, you know, since probably like 21, 22, you know, somewhere in there, when the interest rates went up, and I don't know exactly when that was, but it's somewhere in that range, the house prices have kind of frozen at that level. And they haven't fallen. And I'm going to be able to tell you today really why that's happened. But basically, you know, they've remained pretty consistent. So if you bought your house with 3.5% down, which was an FHA loan, and you bought it 4 or 5 years ago, then the value of it hasn't increased. It hasn't decreased, but it hasn't increased. And so with that, you're not going to necessarily have a lot of equity to pay those payments. So we are starting to see a few foreclosure homes that are on the market. And I mean, really few. But the ones that I'm seeing usually are in pretty bad shape. I mean, not bad shape, but they need quite a bit of work. For example, there was a house that I saw this week that definitely, it has a pool, and it's kind of out there, and it's in Haines City, so it's kind of a little bit off the beaten path and everything like that. But it's a pool house for $329 and 1,900 square feet in the house. Now, the situation with that is that the HOA is not happy with them and has filed a lien or whatever on the property, not a lien, but a fine on the property. And the bank is saying that the new buyer is going to have to pay it. So I called the HOA to find out how much it is, and it's $1,000. And so basically it's not like it's $10,000 or $20,000. It's only $1,000. But basically it's because they haven't painted like they needed to. So obviously the house is going to need a paint job. The pool is, got tadpoles in it, and I saw a snake in it too, and the water's pretty black. So, they find it because of that. And then, there's no mulch around or anything like that that's required in that neighborhood as well. So basically, that's what the scoop was on that. Now, on the inside of the house, definitely going to need some new flooring. The kitchen was not in the best of shape. The power was not on in the house, so I don't know how the air conditioner is or any of those kinds of things. So, when you're getting a pool home that's almost 2,000 square feet for $329,000, there's going to be some work that's going to probably be required on that. And so definitely there is, and all of that. And, like there was a hole in the ceiling, and the outside of the house, they've got like these columns that have foam around it. And you could see that some of that was deteriorating. So basically the bottom line is it is work, but if you've got the time and you've got the ability, then it might be a really good deal for you. So it is in a neighborhood that you can do Airbnb. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2 master suites or primary bedroom suites, and then 2 other bedrooms that share, and the common bathroom for guests and that kind of stuff. But not a bad house, especially for the price in this area. So there are those kinds of deals that are out there if you're really looking for it. But when it comes right down to it, a lot of people want to have that turnkey house is what they're looking for, and you're going to pay more money for that. And so I'm going to go through the stats here in regards to what's going on, but just kind of giving you a brief little idea in regards to what's going on out there. I mean, I think our market is stable, which to me is not a bad thing. The appraisals are coming in pretty good. We're not having any trouble with that. It's like you've got a little bit of time to make a decision on a house, unless it's priced really well, and a lot of people are after it, which they're doing that. And so, but a lot of houses are sitting out there a little bit longer, so you've got a little bit longer to make a decision. So it really comes down to the best houses go really quickly, and the other ones sit there a little bit longer. But when we're looking at it overall, you're going to find, like I'm going to be telling you here in a minute, that basically, overall the houses are going at 90. What are they going at? They're going at 97.9% of asking. So that's not necessarily the first price that they are, but the price that they sell at, that's where they're going at. So when it comes down to it, if you are pricing your house, it obviously is really important. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566 2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So looking at the stats for this week, I want to get into those really quickly. And last week we were looking at a median price of, I have it written here, $402,690. This week, our median price is $416,668. So basically what it's gone up a little bit this week, which is right within our kind of margin of averages and stuff like that from week to week. So we're looking pretty normal in regards to what's going on with that. Like I said, they're going at 97.9% of asking overall, and the single family homes days to contract is 40 from when they go on the market to when they're selling. So when we're looking at the number that's sold, 734 sold last week, and 40 of them were under 250. 68 were between 250 and 300. 226 between 300 and 400, which is our big area. 162 between 400 and 500. 193 between 500 and a million, and then 45 sold over a million. So when we're looking at that, the days on the market, obviously under 250, you would think, that would be pretty low, right? With only having, 4 months of inventory. But 76 days on the market is what it was for that. The lowest, actually the days on the market overall for single family homes is 67. So days to contract is 40. So basically we've got to subtract about 30 days off of the days on the market in order to get to the days to contract, because most of them take about 30 days under contract. Okay, so list to sale price ratio is 96.4 under 250. Then it goes to 97.2, 98.4, which is that big category between 300 and 400. 98.3, 400 to 500, 97.9, 500 to a million, and then over a million, it's at 96.3. So the high end and the low end sticking the same as always. Low end because it needs work, high end because the people have choices and want to make some changes and that kind of stuff. What we're looking at overall is 4.4 months of inventory based on this week in regards to what happened. The only one that's under 4 months is 400 to 500, and that's 3.93. So we're pretty well across the board there. Over a million, there's 6.13 months of inventory, though. So when we're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas, last week we were at 289 as our median price and 270 for this week. So, and they sold at 96.1% of asking. The overall months of inventory there is 6.73. So the condo market is a little bit different. So the thing that I always like to point out here is that when you're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas versus single family homes, or if you're looking at one neighborhood above another, they're all different. And so you've really got to look at it really closely to see in regards to what's going on and all of that kind of good stuff. There were 175 properties that sold this week, condos, townhomes, and villas. And of those, 70 of them were under 250. 24 were between 250 and 300, 46 between 3 and 400, 18 between 4 and 5, 500 and a million had 7, and only 2 over a million sold, which the last few weeks we haven't had any. I mean, we had 2 a couple weeks ago, and we went 5 weeks without any. So basically, when you're looking at that, it's showing 4.73 based on this week. But basically, that's a little bit skewed because there were 2 this week, none last week, all that kind of good stuff. So 6.73. So 4 to 6 is considered a normal market. So we're a little bit into a buyer's market there in the condos, townhomes, and villas. And the ones that are between 500 and a million, we actually have 10 months of inventory. So that's quite a bit more when we're looking at it that way. But the good news is that in my opinion, well, the days on market is quite a bit higher. It's 88 for the condos, townhomes, and villas versus 67 for the single family homes. And the condos under 250 have 112 days basically on the market. But their list to ask price ratios are not that far off from the single family homes. 94.7 under 250, then they go to 97, 98, 97, 98, 96, just kind of like the single family homes. So basically, there is a little bit of negotiating room, but what I have found more than anything is that it's not necessarily the negotiating room that you're finding that is changing and all of that kind of good stuff. What we're finding is that the people are making price reductions until they get to the right market value. So when you get to that right market value, then the properties sell, and they sell very close to asking price. So what I'm not showing here, because it's not easily found. I mean, you can find it on individual properties, but to find it on the aggregate, it's really difficult to see. So, but basically, so once somebody prices their property correctly, they're selling at about 98% of asking. So I tell people all the time that I think it's really good that if you looked at kind of how the institutional investors, how they do it and how they price the properties and what they're looking at. Because, basically the bottom line is that, all businesses out there really, they're testing price. What is the consumer willing to pay, for this property, for this car, for this piece of clothing, for food, for whatever. It's like, what is somebody willing to pay for it? And so they're always testing to see, what they're going to be able to get for it. So it's kind of the same thing when it comes to a house. When you're looking at it, you can look at the comparables and everything like that. And the biggest thing is that most of the people that are purchasing the home are going to purchase it with a loan. When they're purchasing it for a loan, the bank's going to come in and they're also going to look at the price. So the person who's buying it might say, "Hey, I think it's worth $450,000." But every other house in that neighborhood that's exactly the same floor plan, same age, same everything, has sold for $425,000. The bank's going to come back and say, "Hey, we only think it's worth $425,000, so we're only going to give you a loan for X amount of dollars." So the buyers either got to come up with that extra money, which many times they don't have, or the seller's got to come down, or more than likely we negotiate a way, figuring out, basically how are we going to, keep this thing together and make it happen. Because, the appraisal, if you get an FHA appraisal on your house, it will not change for 6 months. So what that means is that you can't go out there and get another appraiser and it's going to come out something different. So basically, what we do is that we work through it, figure out, how we can make it work. Everybody has to give a little bit and everything to make it happen sometimes, but you don't have to just kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can go ahead and, make things happen, which is, absolutely what I do on a daily basis. But basically the bottom line is that when you're looking at it at that kind of thing, and every house in your neighborhood has sold for X amount per square foot, or that floor plan has sold for X price. You putting a higher price tag on it doesn't mean that you're going to get it. Because even if a buyer wants to do it, unless they have the means by paying cash or cash over what the bank is going to be paying, if they're putting 20% down, then they've got to put 20% on top of that appraisal price, and then say it's 5% more than that, they're going to have to come up with another 5% cash on that, which, they're probably not going to do. So basically, when it comes down to it, that appraisal price is what kind of dictates in this market what the house is going to sell for. And so basically, that's what is kind of like really hard. And what I talk to sellers about all the time is that you can test price, but you've got to know that you're probably going to come in pretty close to what the other houses are coming in right now because we're in such a stable market. So you do have to pay attention to that. And that's just kind of the bottom line, and life being it, unfortunately. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So this week, the monthly numbers came out. They come out basically mid-month. So I've got the numbers for July for the whole month. So when I'm talking about the stats, I'm always looking at the weekly totals in regards to what's going on with them and everything like that. So I've actually got it by county, going through kind of a few key statistics, nothing major, but basically I think that when we're looking at it, it's going to be, it's kind of interesting. So basically so we'll start with Osceola County, and for the month of July, there were 744 sales. Now, we just had 700 sales for the week, and that's Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Lake, and Polk. So it's 5. And I'm going to go through the 4 of the 5 counties right here going through this. Now, of the single-family homes, of those 744 properties, 524 of them were single families, and townhouses were 207. The median sale price for all properties in Osceola County is $380,000. The single family residence is $418, and the condos and townhouses are $305. Okay, basically they have 6.8 months of inventory. Single family homes are 6 months of inventory, and condos are 9.1 months of inventory. And they're selling single family homes. They're selling at 96.3% of asking price, and basically 93.8 for condos and townhouses. So you've got a little bit of room there on the condos and townhouses there in Osceola County. Now, basically, the one thing that I want to talk about is the median sales price, which I told you for the single family homes is $418. From a year ago, it is up 0.4%. So that's how flat we are in Osceola County. The condos, townhomes are up 1.7%. Year over year, so on the median sales price. So that's kind of where we're at in regards to that. So when we're looking at Orange County, remember the median price. So I think I'm just going to go through the median sales price on all of these. So in Osceola County, the median sales price for single family homes is $418,268. For Orange County, it's $509,990. For Lake County, it's $397,123, and for Polk County, it's $325. So it kind of gives you an idea. It's like where you want to be in certain counties or whatever, what you're going to have to pay. So Orange County is the highest at $509,990. So remember I told you that Osceola County went up 0.4% year over year. Orange went up 0.8%. Lake County went up 0.2%, and Polk County went up 1.6%. So all pretty flat year over year. Okay. When you're looking at the months of inventory, 6 months in Osceola County, 3.8 months in Orange County, 4.6 months in Lake County, and 4.8 months in Polk County. So you can see, like I was telling you, that, when you're localizing and you're really looking at things, it's like all across the board, we're pretty flat, which is pretty amazing in everything in regards to what we're doing. But, it's like when you're comparing your neighborhood, your zip code, your school district, all of those things, real estate is so local. So when you hear these things on the news and they're like, making this big deal out of something, maybe it's happening in your area and maybe it's not. So you've just really got to look at what's going in the nitty gritty in regards to what's happening, because we were talking in the last segment a little bit about appraisals. And basically the bottom line is that an appraiser can only take properties a mile away. So anything that's further than a mile away, unless it's a special circumstance, they can't use it as a comp. And a comp is a comparable property. And when it comes down to the other thing too is that they can only use properties that sold in the last year. They prefer to use properties that sold in the last 6 months. Well, based on the amount of change in the last year, they're pretty good comps, from comparable properties from a year ago. And they could probably go back further than that, but a lot of times you can't. But the way that our market is today is that that's the way that it works. So basically, when you're looking at it, real estate is so very local. But I think that the interesting thing is how much you're going to pay in each county. I'm just going to do one more stat, and that is the median sales price for the condos and townhouses. In Osceola County, it's 305. In Orange County, it's 280. It's less. In Lake County, it's 290. And in Polk County, it's 244. So Osceola County wins for the condos and townhouses. So that's interesting as well. So basically, when you're looking at it, again, you've got, we're all kind of in that same area, but, that's why when people are looking for something that's more affordable, they're going to go to those outlying areas and that kind of stuff. So if we were looking at Volusia County and looking at DeLand and stuff like that, we might find a similar thing to Polk County in regards to what's going on and everything. You're going to find more affordable homes in some of those outlying areas. Not everywhere in that county, but there are pockets where you can find, newer homes and new homes, or even resale homes, either way, that are going to be a little bit cheaper. And so that's basically why people go there. Now, the traffic might be a nightmare to get there, and they are working on the roads to make them better so that they're not such a nightmare. But that I-4 project that's going south and everything, from my understanding, it's not going to be complete until 2030 and maybe even beyond that. Because I thought, oh, they're working on it. It looks like it's going to be coming along any day. And I looked at when the completion is, and I believe it said 2030. So not going to be around the corner. It'll go faster than we think. But right now, it's a little bit of a hike going through some of those areas because we're just sitting there in traffic. But anyway, when we're looking at it, you've got to make a decision that's right for you and your family and what you're going to do. And so looking at this is kind of gives us an idea in regards to what's happening in our area at this particular moment in time. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So there was a report that just came out this week, and it's actually called the Florida Realtors economics report, and it's August 2026. So basically, the thing that I thought was really, really interesting about this is that it's talking about the people that are moving to Florida and how much money they're bringing in and all of that kind of good stuff. And, so basically, this is what the stats are, that Florida is pulling in 21.2 billion in net wealth transfers annually. And that's more than 2.5 times what Texas brings in, which is the next closest state. So there's a lot of people moving to Florida. And that works out to roughly 2.42 million in net asset moving into Florida every hour. So think about that. That's a lot of money that's flowing in there. So the thing is that what we all immediately go to, right, is we think, okay, it's these ultra wealthy people that are moving in, that are bringing all that money and all of that kind of stuff. And that is not what's going on. It's very interesting. So analysis of the Census Bureau data shows that people moving into Florida now earn only modestly more than existing residents. It's a 5,200 gap. So the movers make 69,800 versus the residents make 72,600. So the people moving to Florida are actually making less than the people who already live here by $5,200. So that is, basically among the top 5 destinations, the smallest gap on the top 5 destination states. Utah has a $28,000 gap. So we only have a $5,200 gap all the way. So basically, the Florida's home prices are grounded in real income growth, not wealth effect bubble from rich transplants. And so, it's like that's where everybody's like, oh, the market's going to fall. It's going to fall. It's not going to fall because there's all these people that are coming in here and they all need houses, but they're kind of at the same level, at the same people that are already here in regards to affordability. So they're not overpaying for the houses. They just want to pay what they are right now. So that's why prices are staying very stable in regards to what's going on. So basically, the other thing that I think people talk about is that they think that the people that are moving to Florida are maybe older. But the interesting thing is they're kind of in all, in all age groups. So the 18 to 24-year-old people, they brought in 0.6 billion, so not that much. 25 to 34, 2.4 billion. 35 to 44 brought in 3.3 billion. 45 to 54 brought in 3.9 billion. 55 to 64, they brought in 7.6 billion. So they are the highest, the ones that are 55 to 64. And then 65 plus, they brought in 3.5 billion. So why 55 to 64 stands out? They're the peak earning years. They recently empty nested, usually no school district constraints. They have high accumulated equity. They're not as rate sensitive to what the interest rate is, and they're more likely to buy than rent. And they're often shopping for second homes or relocation homes. So basically, the other thing that I found was very interesting is that the biggest age gap in the amount of money between the people that live here and the people that are coming here is between the 45 to 54 age group. And what that is that it's a $15,000 gap, but the gap is that the people who live here already make $15,000 more than the people that are coming here. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So basically, when we're looking at that our closed and sales are pacing towards the 2019 levels. Condos and townhouses are recovering after their 2022 slump, and single-family homes are on track for their strongest year since 2023. So I thought that was interesting as well. So basically, when you're looking at it, you're going to find that that basically Florida is very solid financially, and the thing that's helping us are the people that are moving in here, but they're not necessarily any different than the people that already live here. They are making a little bit less money, but the thing is that people are bringing their companies, they're bringing all the people that work with them, and all of those kinds of things are the things that are going on that are causing this growth. And so it's, when we look at it, we're very fortunate, in my opinion, that is what's going on. It's keeping our market very stable. And so you're not seeing the big dumps. And so basically, if there's big drops and that kind of stuff in the cost of housing, then basically that's going to be a lot of people that are hurting. And we did have that happen in 2007, 8, 9, 10, and then started recovering after that. And a lot of people are like, oh, it was like 2008 was really bad. Well, it was really bad here in Florida. And there were, I think it was like 70, I know it was 70 some percent of the homes that were on the market were in a distressed condition, meaning that they were either foreclosed or they were short sales. So that was the market that was going on here. And so it was really tough on the people and anybody that needed to move or had to sell or had their circumstances change. And so we definitely don't like to see that happen. I would much rather that everything was stable and staying the way that it is. There is still a lot of movement. Like I said, in the 5 counties, we've got roughly 700 houses that are selling on a weekly basis. And so that's a lot of houses that are going. So if you do want to sell your house, you do have to price it appropriately. That's the biggest news that's coming out of today. But when you're looking at it, there's just a lot of things that are going on. So basically, when it comes down to it, I think that we're in a great place here in Florida. It's not necessarily saying what area of Florida is growing more than the others, but we do know that Central Florida is getting our share of it for sure. And so that's just good news when you look at it from my angle for sure. So one more thing that I found that I thought was interesting for this week is that Florida's economy moves up to number 14 globally. So basically, the state's 1.8 trillion economy is now the world's 14th largest after surpassing Australia and Mexico. Isn't that amazing? And so it grew 6.3% over the past year, moving closer to its goal of ranking among the world's 10 largest economies by 2030. That's what it is. So we are number 1 for new business startups, number 1 for higher education, number 1 for manufacturing job growth, number 1 for net income migration, number 1 for new business migration, number 1 for Black-owned businesses, number 2 for Hispanic and women-owned businesses, lowest state debt per capita, and there are 155,742 fewer children living in poverty since the Florida 2030 Blueprint launched. So all great news in what's going on in our state and in our area. So anyway, with that, I'm going to let you guys go for today. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.